Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 7 of the anime series, Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu. And this episode felt very much like an evolution for Bon Kikuhiko, who, as of my last episode discussion video, talking to one of you guys in the comments, I really feel like he's evolved into that name, Kikuhiko, and I feel more befitting of referring to him as such from here on out. Because he's really made leaps and bounds, but it's also an evolutionary process in the framework of cutting ties to the past in a lot of ways, because he is basically, as we see through the course of this episode, given this opportunity to travel abroad and perform with the Yakumo of the day, and he's kind of ecstatic about that, but I don't think he's really thinking about his surroundings and how he's going to be leaving, you know, Shin, Sugoroku, high and dry, even though Sugoroku is his own worst enemy. He's still the drunken, buffoonish idiot who you'd think, you know, he should have been fired a long time ago. He should have been set out on the streets, and just for his natural talents in the performance of the Rakugo, are they, you know, keeping him around and letting him be? But he's even going so far as to take risks and do performances above his own station in the annals of the Rakugo and everything like that, and just taking those risks and really back talking to the other Rakugo masters and all that kind of stuff. And it just seems like he is his own worst enemy. He's really just detrimental to his own life. He doesn't have money to spend on new clothes. He doesn't keep himself sufficiently, you know, hygienic and everything like that. And he's very much got, you know, Kikuhiko just picking up all of the odds and ends for him. And, you know, it's through Kikuhiko's involvement that he even has a life outside of the Rakugo and everything. So it's very interesting. I really had a strong Odd Couple vibe. If you've ever seen the film The Odd Couple with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, really, especially when they're kicked out of the clothing shop, the fabric shop, to get a new kimono and everything, you know, for Sugoroku. The idea of him being scolded by Kikuhiko and everything just really reminded me of not only that old movie, but that old TV show as well. And I think there's a new version of it on TV nowadays. But I digress. It just the dynamic between them both is hilarious to me, and it's endearing to me. But it's a case of the thing that really stood out to me the most is the heartbreak, the heart-wrenching nature of what, you know, Miyokichi is going through. And very much is Kikuhiko cutting ties to his past, as I say, in just leaving her behind. And there's a point where I thought he was kind of talking to himself at first, but I think he was actually going through certain segments of dialogue from a particular Rakugo about the idea of confessing his love to him, and how in, you know, his younger days it was something he really couldn't do. And it's very much the case in the present for him as well, in this, you know, flashback scenario in the grander scheme. But in the present for him, I don't know that he feels assured in how he feels about Miyokichi, whether there is a romantic nature, whether he does love her, and whether or not he has considered that. He's very kind of detached from her, and she thoroughly comes to the fore, as if there was any doubt, you know, lingering over from her debut in the series, how she feels about him. Like, there has been certain estimations on my part, why did the Yakumo of the day set them up together? What was that all about? And then, of course, through the course of this episode, when the Yakumo is making it known to Kikuhiko what he plans to do, this tour he plans to go on, and how he wants to take him along, you know, rather than going with Sugoroku. I mean, there's that point where he's pointedly asking, well, how are things going with you and Miyokichi? And I'm wondering why. What is his interest here? Is he trying to get them together, like, genuinely? Is there an ulterior motive where he's not sure, much as I've cursorily touched upon, you know, the sexuality of Kikuhiko, like how he may feel about Sugoroku, if he has feelings toward him, if there's something more going on there, if he has any assurances one way or the other. And it's, you know, like, my thought was the Yakumo gonna broach the idea of bringing Miyokichi along? Was he concerned as to whether or not, you know, I think it might have been a product of the Yakumo wants to know, because why didn't Kikuhiko bring that up? Why was there no remorse or regret about leaving her behind? Like, I think he had maybe hoped more for Kikuhiko to be in love with her, to be infatuated with her, and maybe even to the extent of turning down this, touring offer. But now that he's found his niche, much as I was touching upon that idea of Miyokichi looked downtrodden in the fact that here he was commanding a performance, commanding the audience, and coming into his own, and finally finding that niche, that, hold to grab onto, and effectively mastering this artistry. Now he loves it. He's gone from having no interest in it and almost a case of loathing it. And now it's all he can think about. And he wants success. In the conversation between he and Sugoroku, they're talking about eventually graduating to the next plateau and being able to not have to do so much stressful rehearsal and study and, mastering and commanding a performance, resting a little more on their laurels, but very much the talents they both, have within them inherently. And he's never shown that kind of gratified, exuberance before about the idea of actually owning Rakugo, finding his way through it and achieving something in it. It's always been a second-class thought to him. And now that he's found it, you see that perception in Miyokichi in the last episode. During the performance, she bows her head and she feels what, at least to me, seemed grief-stricken. And we see sort of the exploitation more of this when, they're supposed to hang out. And, of course, you have Sugoroku saying, let's go out for a drink. He's being incessant to the point where Kikuhiko brings him back and, I guess, kind of knocks him out. I don't know what that little thing was with the cotton swab in the end. Was he, dousing his ears? What was he doing? Hypnotizing him? I don't know. Whatever it was to knock, Sugoroku out effectively without having to take a drink. And, of course, Miyokichi comes looking for Kikuhiko, and she's just appalled. She's like, where's my time? Where's my loving? It's very much answering to one of the speculations I had about it's not so much that she's going to become, sort of a wedge in between them, but in a way, Sugoroku is the wedge between he and Miyokichi. And it's also a level of, when they initially brought this concept of touring forth, and Kikuhiko is very much excited about doing this, my initial thought was, oh, here we go. Now that he's going to be off on his own, and of course Miyokichi's going to be left behind, Sugoroku's going to be left behind, this is what's going to see them coming together in his absence, because she needs comforting, and the closest thing she can find and fall back on is Sugoroku, because of how closely entwined they were, Sugoroku and Kikuhiko, and still are. And if he's going to be gone, that's, maybe he's going to embrace her and open his arms to her, and this is going to be where that wedge, I'm assuming, is the direction of this story, that ultimately are we going to see, Sugoroku and Miyokichi ending up together. And maybe this adding to whatever, bad blood or whatever that is, whatever dynamic that is that eventually leads to Sugoroku's being dispatched, being presumably killed, whatever like that. Is it going to be something that Kikuhiko has involvement in? Is it going to be something that is just the earnings of Sugoroku's own being an idiot and a buffoon, whatever like that, having a mouth and using it too? But it's that's very much where I feel the course of this is going. We have Kikuhiko, who's very much about the performance, the Rakugo. He now has found his niche. He now has found an embracing of it and the idea of success within it, which is something he never considered before. Now it's his everything. He doesn't need the added baggage of this woman whom he's not even sure how he feels about. And it's just heart-wrenching. And it was really tugging on my heartstrings to see her all out and out bawling because of how dispatched and distant he is to her, how almost borderlining mistreating her, not being at all concerned about how she feels. And it's one of those things where to each their own and a bag of chips, as I always say. Even in relationships, you can't burden yourself by placing yourself with someone you don't feel connected to. This is something we see so often where people get married because they're feeling those emotions in the moment. Later they end up divorced, because they realize they weren't really well matched as they thought they were. And I don't know whether it's predominantly just that, Kikuhiko is now career-minded, or if there is more to it, if there is more to who he is as far as, as a person, his sexual gratification and attraction and whatever like that, just his persona. It seems to me that he's just all about the Rakugo now, no matter what, and it's really a shame to see how supportive Miyokichi has tried to be, and to see her getting left by the wayside. I mean, she's a character that was only just introduced, a handful of episodes ago, and I strongly feel for her plight. She thoroughly loves this guy, and she just gets nothing from him. And it's a bad situation for her. I wish better for her. But I also, am championing, because he is kind of the focus of the story, I am championing Kikuhiko as well. I want to see him succeeding and everything like that. It's just a really unfortunate series of events that have led them to this, and will subsequently probably see her gravitating, I must presume, more toward Sugoroku, and this may fuel an even more strained situation if the PV for the next episode is anything to be an indication. We may see the relationships of all three of these characters, this triumvirate, that much more strained and everything like that. But then again, as I said in the last episode, there's only so much of the PV footage and everything without hearing the dialogue, without knowing exactly what the context is. We can only presume what the next step is, but it would be the natural flow, the natural course of seeing where these characters go after this. And I don't know if it's going to be touching back upon, Kikuhiko's returning from having traveled and kind of stumbling onto the idea that Sugoroku and Miyokichi have been together, if their meeting is going to be the last time they see each other before he goes off on this touring adventure or misadventure, whatever it proves to be. There's that dialogue, that sequence of dialogue between he and Sugoroku talking about, well, I'm never going to give you the title Yakumo. That's for me. I love you like a brother. I'm your older brother. We're going to stick together. We're going to support each other and everything like that. And I love all the successes you have. We're going to do a two-man show. They've been talking about this for a while now. When you get back from touring, and he's all ecstatic, Sugoroku is all ecstatic about, Kikuhiko's going on this performance tour, but he's still very adamant. But the title Yakumo's for me. And so it's almost like a dual, potential adversarial quality going on there, where it's not only career-wise, but it's also about the woman, the love interest, potentially. And it led me to suspect, could we find Kikuhiko coming back and, having found the Yakumo master, maybe retiring? And this is the sort of backdrop, because it is going to be, as he describes it, a family thing, a family performance tour, whatever like that. Could this be his taking a final bow, and this is where he promotes? Now, I don't know if they can do that right off the bat, or if they actually have to climb the echelons of the Rakugo staple, ladder or whatever like that, and it's something that they have to do through a procedure where he has to still climb up a certain amount of rungs before he can attain the name Yakumo and everything like that, or the title, and all of the things that embodies, or if it would be something that could be a consequence of this tour, and the modern Yakumo appoints him as a successor without all of that. I don't know. But that'll be an added aspect of curiosity to see as we continue forward. And just, again, the idea of evolution and characters now moving on, and the adventure and the awe and the wonder of that, as well as the heartbreak and all the bad things that come with it. I mean, this series is nothing without the heart of its characters. And through their passions and through their interests, whether it be in each other, familially, romantically, their object of affection being their own, sort of occupation, this artistry of, performance and the Rakugo and all that kind of stuff, it just speaks wonders to me. And I'm thoroughly engaged with them, and I thoroughly want to see how their lives unfold. And I mean, to a point, we know that the modern Yakumo, Kikuhiko Bon in the past, is relating this story. And I do hope we get back to that at some point. We get to see what's going on with the characters in the modern sense, framework of the series. But as long as we're investigating this whole past scenario with their lives, it's highly intriguing and engaging, and I just love every minute of it. Every scene of every episode drips with authenticity and this wonder and this drama, and it can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you've seen episode 7 of Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you found it as moving and insightful as I did, to the idea of, speaking to the idea of moving on, evolution, whether personally or professionally, and any speculations you want to put forth as to where you think it's going to go, whether you think we are going to actually see the fluid momentum of, Tsukuroko and Miyokichi finding each other in the absence of Kikuhiko, and all that good stuff. Anything goes in the comments below. Our POVs can certainly disagree. If you didn't happen to find anything awesome about this episode, let me know in the comments as to why it is. And yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.